कि अच्छा, what am I going to learn from this? Right? But as time moved on, call it providence or whatever, I'm on this side now. So there are two challenges which I believe there are two big challenges which sales leaders face today. One is the point that Stuart mentioned, empathy. We live in a world, Rahul, today where there is a lot of information available. It's not like what the situation was 20 years back. There's a lot of information available, and more so, there is an information asymmetry which is in favor of the buyer. There was in the beginning, uh, say 20, 30 years back, there was information asymmetry which was in favor of the seller. The seller had more information than the buyer. And then the entire information age came in, more information was freely available. Today, we actually live in an age where there is a plethora of information sitting with the buyer, which is good and bad. The tricky part is too many options confuses the buyer, right? And hence the struggle that most sales leaders face with their teams is teams are still applying the old ways of telling and selling,
Mm.
right? Which is the traditional ways of selling rather than being something what I prefer to call a buying enabler. So I'm a strong believer that today we are not salespeople, right? We should stop calling ourselves salespeople. We should actually wear the hat of calling ourselves buying enablers because that's exactly what we are. So that's one. Uh, Sales teams are constantly just giving information, and not spending too much of time building the connect. So that's one. The second challenge, which I believe after speaking to a few sales leaders, is the inability to identify what do I really coach my salespeople on. The sales processes are very strong, right? I think most industries have come to a stage where there is a very robust process of setting up sales processes. But then the process works in some instances, it doesn't work in some instances for the same person. And hence, what do I really do to coach my salespeople to become better and better so that we can win more deals every day? So these are the two challenges which I believe exist in the sales world, Rahul.
Mm. And I think in some ways I feel quite redeemed that ultimately it's all boiling down to the human factor, you know.
100%.
And of course, the first thing I think most of us do when we're trying to be better salesmen is to put ourselves in the buyer situation. And trust is so key. And you're absolutely right. We know from the work that you do so much of the work using personality that people are different. There are going to be people who are going to find trust natural, and there are going to be some people, I'm one of those I call stupid empathy, like they sort of over rely on trust. And it's
Mm,
usually also sometimes people trust others not because it's a strategy, but because it's convenient. So I think trust is such a big part of it. And I think somebody who gives me time and attention, I mean, and that's such a big piece of it. So you're right. I mean, models can only do so much. Frameworks and structures can do only so much. At the end of that, there's a human at play. And as they
absolutely.
say, the one thing to know that you're human is that you'll operate on emotion. Logic only follows afterwards, right?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
just want to take like, one quick minute to talk about the fact that the other thing I learned from our conversations and observation is whether it's sale or it's whatever, teams are teams, right? And just putting a bunch of talented people in one room doesn't guarantee success. It's like so much about the
Mm,
dynamic of the team. And I think it's true for sales teams also. We talk about diversity so much, but unmanaged diversity can be a disaster because the very people who compliment me are also the people I can easily get in dispute with because they're usually the opposite of me, right? So
yeah.
I think
Yeah.
good sales teams learn to appreciate the strengths others bring, but they don't appreciate by words. They appreciate by putting some norms for the team. They make sure that the behavioral norms demonstrate reciprocation and appreciation of people who are different. The final thing
True.
I wanted to talk to you and share with, maybe there are some people like me in this audience today who perhaps are not, who's still working on developing their sales ability, right? So,
Mhm.
and which is when I went to my internist, I asked him, I said, do you want me to also meet the cardiologist? So my internal doctor said, no, because if you go to a cardiologist, he'll see everything from the focus of the heart itself. Whereas there are a lot of moving parts. This whole
Mm,
idea that the body actually is a system made me think of even the sales process. It's ultimately it's a system at play. Every salesperson has got a system at play. Where I am a beneficiary of Lumina Sales is that it helped me to understand that I'm not necessarily a bad salesperson. I'm falling short at one or two stages of the sales cycle. And that immediately built up hope. Rather than think that I'm a basket case because, it's so easy to focus. And like what you said, growing up in our days, sell and tell was the way, or
Hmm.
tell and sell
Yeah,
was the way, right? So we started to assume sales is only the domain of aggressive people who push and push. But that's far from truth. So,
yeah,
anyway, so I just want to share that bit. I'm really excited because you're bringing some real stories and some case studies. And I'm also very excited because you've used personality science, Raghu, to solve many, many problems. And hopefully, I'm looking forward to seeing that how you brought it to life. So, with that, I invite you to kind of take it away. It's yours to run, and looking forward to see more and more gems from the conversation we had earlier and now. Thank you.
sure, sure.
Over to you.
Thanks. Thanks, Rahul. All right. So I will spend some time sharing some of my experiences. I think I'll probably run some slides for around 25 odd minutes. Uh, just putting this up. Just confirm to me if this is visible in screen. Is it up
It
there?
is now. It needs to go to slideshow, but the screen is visible. Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
All right. So I'm here to share some points of view and some experiences that I have. But before we do that, let's stay away from the sales world for some time. And I invite everyone to just follow some sentences that I'm going to show with you. Imagine this is you, and it's a story of some random morning. It could be this morning, and here are a few things that are happening in people's lives. Okay, maybe you check your LinkedIn before you get out of bed. You look at who has viewed your profile, or you're checking your Instagram, some social media. One of the first things that people do nowadays is this. You check your social media and check what's happened, who's following me, who has liked my post, etc. Right? So that's one event that's happening. And as the day moves, let's say you're having breakfast with your partner and you're generally having a chat of how your day is looking. You're having a conversation of how my day is today. And you framed it in a way that you made them want to support you. Yeah, देखो आज का दिन थोड़ा busy है. These things are there, and you're setting expectations. Okay. You might also have been in a situation, most definitely, right? Very likely, where your child has asked for screen time. And before you say yes or no, you ask them, what exactly are you planning to watch? Why, what do you need your mobile for? What do you need the laptop for? Or what do you need the iPad for? Or a very normal day-to-day incident, you and your colleague are having a discussion, you convince somebody to change the meeting time, and you explained why it worked better for both of you. Or you and your family negotiate and agree on a restaurant for this weekend. People have different views, and you negotiate your way through and finalize on a restaurant or any kind of an outing that you want to do. Or for that matter, you got a message and you followed up on a message that you sent yesterday. Somebody, you sent a message to somebody, no reply has come in, and you have followed up. Or somebody sent you a message and you took your time and decided, okay, I will respond to this in much more detail a bit later, making sure the relationship stays warm. Okay. So, if not all, some of these events might have been part of your life. But here is the interesting part. Let's look at what this exactly is. And in the Lumina sales terminology, it's equivalent to, we spend a lot of time doing some amount of research, what's happening around us. That's what Lumina calls as the research stage. We do spend time prospecting, building trust with people around us, getting their buy-in. We also spend time understanding different people's needs, whatever be the situation. We are advisors to people in any walk of life. And in some situations, we have our experience with Baxters. We do recommend solutions to people. And we are also in situations where we are going for a commitment. We are looking for a lock-in, agreeing on a commitment or giving a commitment to somebody, maybe a bit of negotiation here and there. We are also in a situation where we are supporting and growing. Just keep these terminologies in the back of your mind because I'll bring this up and why it is relevant to the Lumina sales. Now, what's interesting here is while these are pretty much everyday situations, different people show up differently. So, for example, the checking LinkedIn. One of us in the call might be somebody who scans very broadly, just looks at the threads, gets curious about some tangent that comes in, and ends up somewhere unexpected. You went in wanting to look at a few things, and then you scroll, and you ended up into something completely different. Whereas while you're doing that, there is somebody else sitting in his or her house looking at his or her social media, but it's very clear and goes straight to that one or two specific things that he or she wants to see. They confirms what they already suspected or they were anticipating, and they close the app. So same situation, different ways of approaching it. Or for that matter, when we are framing the day to our partner, you might have somebody who is very excited, leads with a lot of energy, talks about the big picture. Today's day is so important. It's going to do this, it's going to do that for me, etc., etc. Makes it very exciting and builds a buy-in. Whereas somebody else who is having a conversation with their partner would be straightforward and say, they would just state the facts and say, here is what I have, here is when I'll go, here is when I'll be back. No framing, just information. There are different ways of dealing with our children as well when they ask for screen time. Some of us would ask one question, wait, listen fully before we take a decision, and genuinely being curious on why the kid really wants what they want. Or for that matter, there could be somebody else who has already made his or her mind up and says, okay, I'm already forming an answer before the child finishes speaking. Question is just a formality. I need to ask, that's why I'm asking. Yes, yeah. Or even convincing a colleague. Different people have different approaches. Somebody will go about build a very logical case and say, here is why this time works better for us. Or somebody else might just walk up with the relationship and just request, hey, look, can you just do this? It's a request. I would like it if you would accommodate the different timing. Right? Somebody uses logic, somebody else uses relationship. Same action, but different ways of getting the results. Somebody is looking for possibilities. Somebody else is looking for confirming a hypothesis. Somebody is asking for a support, right? Somebody is discovering a need. Somebody is just managing a request. Okay, but the approaches are different. Or likewise, even for the next two examples, which is negotiating a restaurant, somebody would propose once, clearly state, and wait till the room decides, let the decision land. Or somebody would just keep on pumping up options. Let's do this. That's a nice place. Oh, if you don't like this, let's look for that. And the decision may or may not land. Or even following up on a message, somebody would follow up once very clearly and will wait, trust the relationship to hold without pressure, whereas somebody else may not have followed up yet, doesn't want to seem pushy, and the message sits unanswered for some time. All of us on this call might be able to relate to a few situations and our behaviors, and the interesting part is the behaviors are likely to be different for different people, but the end result is the same. The reality here is we do what is natural, and this is where behavior comes in. As people, we are at our best when we deploy our natural behaviors. And I want to use this word called authenticity. Right? Authenticity comes in when we are just utilizing the best of the natural traits that we have. And since Rahul used the word trust, I'm a strong believer that trust has a lot to do with how authentically we show up. And what better way than being of being authentic than just pulling up what works best for us, what comes very, very naturally. So what feels natural? Okay. What takes effort, what you avoid, all of this are part of our personality and it shows up in our behavior. The interesting part is everyone is selling. Everyone is selling every time. You're selling right now. Okay. After this call, also you'll be selling. Before this call, also you'll be selling. There is every conversation we have is selling in some form or the other. And every stage of selling, so there are 6 stages of selling, which I'll talk about in a moment. It maps to something we do every day. And that's what Lumina Sales taught us. The question is not whether you're selling or not, you are. The question is, how well are you aware of the wiring that you have, that all of us have? All of us have got a natural wiring. Are we really aware of the wiring that we have, which helps us or prevents us from effective selling? And that's the beauty of Lumina Sales. It shows us our natural personality. Okay. I'll just take a moment and I'll ask for a poll here. There'll be 2 questions that will be popping up. So Yes, there are the two questions which are popping up. The first one is, which of these feel most natural to you? There are six options. Just go ahead and participate. Let's see what the group feels here. The first question is, which of these feel most natural to you? Go ahead, type your answers, select your answers on the poll. Nice, thank you. Six. Okay, 7, 8. 14 responses. Wonderful. 15, thank you. 16 out of 24. 17. I'll wait till it touches 20 if it does. All right, interesting. So first of all, huge round of applause to all of you. I think there's a lot of authenticity coming in here. So what I see is we have people in all the six stages. Okay. Just a moment. Sonam, how do we move to the next poll? If I do an end poll, this displays the result, is it?
Yeah, end poll will display the result.
So let me show that. Okay. Yeah, I've done that.
Okay.
All right. So, and I need to click on share results, is it?
Yeah.
All right. So the interesting part is a lot of authenticity coming here, and all the six have got some way, some role in the way we behave, right? Some of us are saying, okay, we naturally prepare well. Some, in fact, interestingly, nobody has said that we are good at framing things. Sorry, drawn in. That's an error.
Apologies, for the
Yeah. I'm good at framing things so that others are drawn into me. I listen first. I'm confident presenting my perspective. Now, all of these are natural to each one of you who has responded. And as we move, you will see that all of these are very important aspects of how a sales process works. Okay. There is one more question that I want you to answer. What you did right now is a reflection for yourself. How do we go? Can we go to the next poll?
Yeah,
Yes.
I've displayed.
Now, this is regarding your sales team. Those of you who are facilitators, you may want to generalize it and see what you have seen in clients or sales teams across organizations. Those of you who are leading sales teams, just share what you see in your teams. Which challenge does your sales team struggle with the most? They don't do enough preparation. They can't get past the gatekeeper. They talk too much. Generic proposals. They leave meetings without a next step. They win the deal, but then they go silent and accounts don't grow. What is it that bothers most sales leaders? Nice. I really like the promptness with which people are responding. Okay, 13 up. Wait for 3 or 4 more. All right, I got 17 responses, 18. Okay. 100% answered. Wonderful. And poll. Share results. All right. Now, as sales leaders across organizations, all of these are challenges to sales leaders. There are people who find their teams do not prepare enough. There are teams who feel my team cannot get the first meeting. They are not able to get past the gatekeeper. A lot of people, 50% of us feel that our team talks too much and they really don't understand what the client really needs and just yapping all the way. Very generic proposals, not very sharp, not very aligned to exactly what the client needs. They can't close. It's a 1/3 of the population which is saying that, look, my team is not able to close. They don't leave meetings with a clear next step. And there is also a small amount of people who say, okay, we win the deal, but then after that, my accounts don't really grow. Now, what Lumina Sales really tells us is precisely this, that look, all of these six, we can stop sharing this. I'll take off the poll. Is the poll off now?
Yeah, the poll is off.
Wonderful.
I'll
Okay.
be
Right. So now Lumina Sales addresses the fact that our personality marries into the entire sales process. And what's the sales process? It's a sales cycle which has got 6 stages. And this is what we call the 6 stages at. Any kind of opportunity that we look at, we always start with research and acquiring market knowledge. What's happening around us? We should know the market. We should be good at knowing the competition, what's happening around us. Once we know that, we can go to the next stage, which is about prospecting and engaging clients. That who is the first contact? How do we build a business case? How do we build trust with these contacts? And from those set of contacts, there will be a set of contacts who will get filtered out. And those that move forward, where there is a genuine opportunity for engaging, the third stage is all about understanding needs, which is all about listening and qualifying very, very deeply. Is it worth spending enough energy here? Do I really understand what this customer needs? And once we do that, we go to stage 4, which is all about recommending solutions, which is about presenting, co-creating something that is useful to both of us, allow the client organization to look at what they are being offered. And then comes stage 5, which is about getting commitment. And lastly, it is supporting and developing accounts. And when you look at it from a perspective, it's actually a cycle. Stage 6 feeds back to stage 1. Interestingly, 9 out of 10 participants I ask, where do you start your sales process today? 9 out of 10 participants, inevitably, very honestly, they admit that I start my sales process at stage 4. 1, 2, 3 don't exist for me today. Right? And that's a starting point. That's a very strong starting point because they're aware of it. There could be multiple factors, but a lot of people are actually aware that we are starting at the wrong stage. It's about, we just jump with recommending solutions. And hence there are a lot of fallouts. Now, what's interesting is each of these stages requires a completely different set of behaviors, which in Lumina Sales is called effective qualities, right? There are some behaviors which will help us in the research stage, some other behaviors which will help us in the commitment stage. It's not necessarily the same behavior or quality, right? But each stage requires a different set of qualities from us, and some are natural to us. What Lumina Sales also says is there is something called overplaying a particular behavior. And this is the most interesting part of the report. It was so revealing for me. Normally, we live in a world which celebrates success a lot. And if success is there, there is very less energy being spent on what exactly is coming in my way, etc. The process is there, but then the personality part is never addressed. There's nobody who coaches on exactly what's really going. What are you overdoing? Because overdoing is good, is what we have been taught. But interestingly, Lumina Sales highlights this and say, hey, look, you might have a strength, but if you overdo that strength, it becomes a weakness. And that's something which is called overextension. Now, one message that we give in that I have learned through my experience, which comforts a lot of my participants, is that, look, you are great the way you are. You are a great salesperson, and that's why you are in this organization for a long time. You have your own successes. We don't want you to learn something new. We just want you to be aware of what is it that has been working for you naturally, right? And you just dial that up. A. B. What is it in your behavior that is coming in your way, and you tone that down? That's all you need to do. Learning a new skill is something which takes a lot of time, and salespeople don't have that patience. And it doesn't make sense that you, in a fast-moving world, adopting a new behavior does take time. So why not just make the best use of what's working best for you? So it's not about becoming somebody who is better than me. It's just amplifying my best self. That's what Lumina Sales really reveals. In a moment, I'll share with you the portrait as well. So essentially, those of you are wondering, what the Lumina Sales portrait about? It gives us these things at an individual level. A, there are 24 sales qualities that Lumina Sales suggests which stem from our personality and behavior. And these are mapped to all the 6 stages. So there are 4 qualities which help us in each stage. Each stage has four unique qualities. So you will be able to see the 24 qualities. You will be able to see your top 5 strengths which come naturally to you. These are absolutely natural. You will also be able to see what are your overextension risks. In times of pressure, what are those strengths or what are those qualities which might be working against you? Something that we might be overusing. You would be able to see your development areas, qualities that don't come very naturally to you. And you're also able to see that, am I really, the behavior that I'm demonstrating, is it really in sync with the behavior the buyer is looking for right now? For instance, the buyer may just be in a stage where they are running business as usual. They don't really have a need for something new. But here I am in stage 4, recommending solutions. So it's a complete mismatch. We are not really talking to what the buyer needs. Okay, so this is how the report looks like. Is this screen visible enough? Do you want me to enlarge this slightly?
That's fine, I think.
That's fine. Okay.
I think
So,
the earlier version was better.
okay, so this is the PDF. I'll go back to the slide as well. I'll just walk you through how this looks. So this is how part of the report looks like. So what you see here is the sales cycle, the 6 stages that I spoke about. And around the 6 stages, there are these 24 odd qualities that you will see. So here are the 24 qualities that you will see, which help us in each of these stages. So in your personalized report, you will see 5 stars, which are basically your top strengths, and 5 circles, which are your least natural qualities. It also shows overextensions, right? You might want to notice that the overextension words are different. It also shows what your top 5 overextensions are, which is what are the 5 things that are likely to come in your way. So for this individual, the watch out is, in a sales process, I might end up giving too much, right? I might come across as somebody who is pressuring. It might appear as somebody who is recommending or trying to close well, but it manifests as somebody who is pressuring. Forced close. For me, it's very natural. Okay, I like to take a decision and close it. But then to the person in front, it might manifest as somebody who is really forcing a closure on me, and I'm not yet ready for this. And this is so powerful when people reflect. The report shows the 4 behaviors, the 4 qualities in each stage, and clearly helps you understand what are the top 2 for you and what are the bottom least natural qualities for you. And it also does the same in terms of the overextensions. So in the research stage, I might be somebody who tends to feel that I know best. Mera market main janta hu, right? I don't need somebody else's intelligence. I know my market the best. Somebody might be doing absolutely ungrounded research. Analysis paralysis. Somebody might be actually doing a lot of data-based research, but then doing too much of it can be analysis paralysis. So for each individual, they get this graph. And the most powerful part of the report, I'm not going to explain the report, but I'm just going to kind of show this to you, is the commentary that is absolutely customized. So for each stage, each individual is clearly given a feedback that, hey, look, you know what, at this stage, you are good at doing this, you're good at putting different pieces together, da 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 da. These are the possible shortcomings at this stage, and how do you develop the qualities in this stage? So there is a full 1 page on each stage which talks about your natural qualities, and a similar page on overextensions as well, right? You can be too fixated on your research, right? So this is how the report kind of looks to the person who is doing the survey. Let me spend some moment on the overextensions, and I'll try to bring this alive with some example, because overextensions can be a bit requires a bit of thinking to understand what it is. So I thought I'll just take this to an example. Let's imagine there is Rohan. Now Rohan walks into a key account meeting and he builds the case with absolute confidence. The client nods, the client asks the follow-up question. Rohan reads the room, anticipates, and adapts. He's convincing, right? He's convincing because he brings in these qualities. Now that's one situation. Now Rohan is put into another situation. Same Rohan, next quarter, different client, still hesitating. Rohan keeps pushing, and the client stops responding to emails because he was pressuring. Or for that matter, let's look at Arjun. Arjun knows exactly when the client is ready. He's got so much of a pulse on the client, on a particular client, and he says he's able to read the signals very well. He says, let's finalize this today. Let's talk about the next steps at exactly the right moment. And that's a good strength, which in Lumina parlance is called decisive close. You're able to really get to a decision and close. Same Arjun, but with a different client who needs more time. So it's not Arjun, the client needs more time now because the people are different. But he still says it. Arjun brings his natural self and he overdoes it. He says, okay, let's close today, let's finalize today. The client now pushes back. Now that was a forced close because Arjun was not really aware of the other person's traits. Or let's look at Priya. Priya spends 20 minutes at the start of every client call asking about their business, their team, their challenges. 20 minutes is a bit too much. Let's say 5 minutes. The client trusts her completely and she engages a lot with empathy. She goes beyond business and talks about other stuff with people. But as the same Priya is now sitting with a client who is unhappy about delivery, and she agrees to extend terms, add a free service, reduce margin, anything that avoids conflict. So she's building harmony on one side, and that building harmony behavior also now turns into avoiding conflict, and she ends up giving too much. Or for that matter, Sunita. Sunita sends very diligent. She sends a detailed follow-up note after every meeting. Clients feel reassured, promises are kept. That's called rigorous execution. But the same Sunita, 6 months in, client emails asking for a change. And she then routes it through a formal process. 3 weeks later, the client is looking elsewhere. So what's happening here? The same individual in different situations is actually showing different behaviors. And that's what we are calling overextensions. The effective quality for Rohan is very effective when he is convincing. But in times of pressure, when things are not going his way or he is tentative, there's a likelihood that Rohan can become pressure. Arjun, great at decisive close, but when there is tentativeness, when there is uncertainty, when there is pressure, the same Arjun, internally Arjun feels, so I am doing decisive close only. But then the behavior comes up as a forced close. Priya feels she's engaging with empathy, but in reality, she's giving too much. Sunita feels she's following the execution rigor, but then it becomes too dependent on process. It becomes too bureaucratic in this approach. So all of us do this. All of us have those moments where we overplay our strengths and then that comes in our way. Let's look at some examples if they sound familiar. And please reflect. You might have been in a situation where when you are researching, you go in with your mind already made up. And hence, I will look at data that confirms what I already think. I collect data that confirms what I already think. I research, sometimes I may research endlessly and never pick up the phone. Or sometimes I may come in too strong and fast. Clients may feel cornered. Sometimes I listen so carefully that I forget to contribute. I'm just listening and the client is wondering, is this person there in the room or not? Right? Or sometimes I ask questions, but I don't really act on it. Maybe sometimes I overwhelm the client with options. And I'll be honest, it happens with me as well. It's just the difference that Lumina Sales has made is it makes me aware when I do it and helps me to change my behavior. Getting commitment, I may be pushing for a decision before the client is ready, or I may sense hesitation and I'll step back. Even after the deal, I may disappear post the sale, right? The client gets unhappy. Or I may get so locked into the bureaucratic process of account management that I don't keep any flex. A lot of us might have been in these situations. Now, all of this emerged, where did this come from? All of this emerged from the various experiences that I've had. So I'll take a moment to kind of share how my field experiences showed me this. So 3 deployments I'll talk about on how deploying Lumina Sales really works. So the first example is when I started off, I just went and said, okay, let's try the Lumina Sales tool. I believe the tool. Let's figure out how we can run this. The first time I ran this, I just ran it as a standalone tool. So setup was participants just completed the psychometry. There was a dedicated session only to debrief the tool. No other concept, nothing. The excitement was there. People love reading about themselves, right? So it was like the rare case of a medical report which you're excited to read, right? We are not normally excited to read medical reports. But this one was people were really excited because they could see themselves in it. What worked? The self-awareness was immediate. They recognized themselves in these situations, in those qualities. They said, yes, this is me. I'm yet to come across a participant who has trashed the entire diagnosis. There are people who say, hey, you know what, out of these 5 things, these 4 I agree with. There's one point I don't agree. And I tell them, okay, let's work with what you agree with. Why spend energy in things that you don't disagree, you don't agree with? If what you have agreed with is useful, let's move with that. The language, so there was genuine energy, language of overextensions landed very, very well. But there was something missing. It was just an education session. The application was missing. And something that kept on ringing in my head was, what do these guys do off from Monday? What is it that they would do differently from Monday? And that kind of bothered me a bit. And I said, okay, the design needs to change. The learning was excitement without application is just pure entertainment, nothing else. There needs to be something which takes them to the real world. So the second time we ran this, we actually embedded, this is the first time we actually embedded the Lumina Sales psychometry into a full-fledged program. The program was about helping account delivery managers to mine more of their accounts. They were there with the account, they were just executing and doing operations. They had enough opportunity and intelligence to figure out what more is happening at the client end so that I can get more business. But they were not doing it. So we integrated this. So we integrated the science of Lumina Sales. It was not the entire session, it was part of the session. And Lumina Sales was one continuous part of the entire session. It was around day one, ka second half was entirely this. Same, very strong energies, very strong connects, belief and conviction were built because they were able to somewhere connect to parts of the sessions, and they were even able to take it to the next day when we were doing some role plays. But still something was missing. And the issue was the Lumina Sales section was one big block lying in one place. And just imagine reading a report for the first time and then something of so much of depth. It takes a lot of time to really reflect and understand, but it's well understood. The issue was we never revisited the portrait again throughout the session. So while putting the tool in the program was definitely progress, but if it is only opened once, it was overwhelming. Which then brought me to the best design. So the best design that we have run is design the sales program around the 6 stages. So the 6 stages are the program: the research, prospecting, understanding needs, recommending solutions, getting commitments, supporting and developing accounts. Those are the key skeletons of the program. And that's what we did. And here is what happened. After every, so we open up a stage, we complete the science of the stage, we bring in the behaviors of that stage, and at the end of that stage, the participant reads the report only for that stage. Right? So it's a good 15 minutes spent only on stage one, understanding, okay, what is this stage telling about me? What am I doing right? What do I do better the next time? So it's a very deeply embedded, very much more powerfully embedded methodology. What changed was this time the excitement was intense and there were questions. People were saying, you know what? I know when I work the market, I don't really have a logic to prospecting or logic to finding opportunities. I see something, I get interested, I inquire more about it. And there was somebody else who said, you know what, when I go to the market, I have a list of accounts that I really want to visit. And I then observe them only. And they were able to relate completely because it was a real setting. The breakthrough was by stage 3, all participants were actually naming each other, naming their own overextensions with real examples. And it was not just about landing. So the difference was in the first 2 instances, Lumina Sales, great report, very powerful, to a stage where people were able to really clearly say, you know what, my overextension is this at this stage. Okay, I tend to do this too much. And after the session, so we had even 21 days and 40 days after the session, we gave them assignments where under each stage they had to do some assignments. People actually came back and said, you know what, when I was doing the understanding needs wala part with my customer, I recognized these overextensions of mine. And now this is what I'm going to do next time. So people were actually calling them out in their own performance and it stayed alive. So this is the most powerful way of deploying it because it keeps the participant very, very focused. So I'm just cognizant of time. My top learnings are these. Lumina is just a mirror. It's not the event. The 6 stages that Lumina talks about are the key parts of the program. That's where the science of sales lies. And then we use the portrait as a mirror. It's always good to distribute the reflection across the session, because then you are referring to the report 5-6 times in those 2 days. One block can be very overwhelming. Excitement without application is entertainment, like I said. Overextensions are much more engaging than strength because they see it and they spark recognition. There is something more powerful, which I'll show next, which is the team snapshot. So while I'm talking just about the individual report, for sales leaders, it's very powerful when they can actually see the aggregation of people's reports in their team and see where they stand. It's data. It's not just gyan or theory or gut. And people get enough time to kind of reflect on the reports. So my recommended dosage to my participants is every Saturday before 8 p.m. Open up the report and read it for half an hour for the next 3 months. That's the recommended dosage, because you need to keep revisiting it. Right. Now, here is what team leaders get. So if you're a team leader, you can also get this. So this is a combined report of 14 sales professionals in one organization who have gone through this. So as a group, what does the group represent? The team is naturally good at these things. They are good at asking questions. They are very logical. They are good at reading when a client is ready to move, ready for closure. So these are the strengths that are emerging. I have just converted the Lumina terminologies into pure, simple English sentences so that you can understand what this is. At the same time, it also tells the leader that, look, this is where your team is overdoing stuff. Okay, sometimes simple things might take too long. Process is good, but then they are overdoing the process at times. Sometimes they might be they're not using innovation. They're following the playbook even when it's not working. They may appear as being pushy. Now, to a sales leader, it's simple. It says, okay, my team is somebody who is logical, very competitive, delivers on promises, but maybe pushes too hard and neglects the relationship after the close. Yeah. So how do we make use of this as sales leaders? As sales leaders, this tool can be only powerful if you use it in very powerful coaching conversations, right? Instead of giving vague feedback, you are very specific. Instead of saying, be less aggressive, which is a very common thing, right, in sales. Instead of that, you're very specific. And you know what? Your decisive close is a strength, but watch out. They are also having an overextension on forced close. Watch out when your client is getting disengaged. It's likely you are forcing it. So step back. Use the 6 stages in the deal reviews. In fact, this is very interesting. Organizations do pipeline reviews, but if you use Lumina Sales, you're actually not only doing reviews, you're actually doing development conversations with your team. You build team coaching from team data. The conversation is very objective. It's non-threatening. You yourself have read the report. Nobody else is telling you. Your behaviors are on the table. Even for new hires, it can be powerful. Onboarding can include the portrait. Lumina Sales can become the coaching language. It's not just a one-off training event. Yeah. So where does this create the strong cases? I believe in consultative B2B sales, it's most powerful. Not so much in FMCG retail selling. That's that's my personal bias. I would love to learn from somebody who has really applied this in retail selling, but very, very powerful because it has a direct application in B2B sales. Account management as well, because there are people who are not selling, but they're managing an account, and more organizations are looking at mining accounts further. Sales leadership programs gives managers very specific language instead of just doing gut feel coaching. Blended journey programs followed up by role plays and AI personas, wherever you want to use them. Even when your high performing team has hit a ceiling, you have got a very high performing team, but then the next level requires a completely different set of awareness and skill sets. And that shows exactly where the gap of a team, etc. is. So if you choose to deploy Lumina Sales, if I were to deploy Lumina Sales, here is what I would do. Start with a discovery conversation, understand the client's context first. The tool is secondary. The tool comes later. Understand the discovery, understand the context. Then pull in the psychometric, right? There are online portraits. Based on the portrait, 2 things can happen. In fact, currently we are working on a project where we are deploying the psychometric first. We are waiting for the results. And based on the team results, we will decide how the next part of the journey is going to look like. So the program can be an output of the psychometric. That's also a very powerful use case. Get into program design, get into delivery, get into post coaching sessions, put it as part of their IDPs, give them assignments under each of these stages because they will always connect to those 6 stages and give them live assignments with the help of the client. Enable the manager. So in a lot of these cases, we also show the manager of the participants what the team looks like. Yeah. So this is a recommended way of deploying Lumina Sales. The output is that you have a team with a very shared language, a very common shared language, individual plans, and not a manager who gives generic gyan. They've got very specific outputs, inputs to give to every single person, and that's what we want. So yes, sales underperformance is not really about technique, and the process is the same. The technique is the same. It's not as much about technique. It's about understanding the wiring. Is my wiring meeting that moment or not, and really knowing that difference. So yes, that's what I really wanted to share, and you may want to take a quick screenshot of this because if you want to reach out more to understand, we have Sonam here and the team. She will be here to help you more on understanding how Lumina Sales can find an application. So I just stop here, and all I would like to say is we do present ourselves in different ways in different situations, right? And there is no better gift than a tool which is able to tell us in a very non-threatening way how we behave. Because our managers will always talk about results, right? But nobody really brings the internal best self forward. I have benefited a lot, and I find it very, very powerful. So Rahul, yeah, this is what I have discovered as a powerful link between personality and performance.
Yeah, perfect, Raghu. And I think in full disclosure, because we are all fellow practitioners, most of us over here,
Yeah.
from the people I know. Naturally, when you're presenting a webinar like this, you also be mindful, this is a sales webinar. To talk entirely about the report itself is an outright selling, which is frankly, we said is a turn off, right? However, what was very interesting was Raghu and I, when we were exploring the model, we kept saying, but this is exactly how it plays out in real life. I mean, in the sense, you can give the qualification, the job, the designation, the training, the same training to everybody, and different people, because of their personality, will react differently. Right? It's not a matter of talent. In fact, sometimes they're deceivers. You meet people at interview, they charm you, they're very good at a lot of things. And you say, this guy is an inveterate, natural salesperson. But that person will have every gift but the art of closing, because they're also addicted to being liked.
True.
That, So what's very interesting is that we are all selling based on our personality. Of course, what is generically true is we are all selling all the time, right? But the next is we are selling according to our personality. The good news is nobody is a complete picnic basket. Everyone's got one sandwich short. I'm sure even Raghu, with all his experiences, is still working on himself, right? In one or two areas.
100%.
Okay. So big challenge was, how do we not make it a salesy webinar? And then we said, how do we get away from the fact that this is mapping reality as close as it gets? Because there are 6 stages of a sales cycle. Even in that daily selling, like proposing the restaurant thing or negotiating with your child, I mean, those stages are there. So to that, we hope that all the participants were able to relate to those stages, were able to relate to the language of personality, and also maybe explore that how their own personality is overriding some of their natural strengths sometimes. Now, the big question which Raghu brought us was that, okay, I've got the data, I've got the personality, right? Now what? Now what do I do with the data? Otherwise, if I don't put it to action, it's just plain data. So it'll be a wasted opportunity if I didn't pull in somebody from the audience, somebody who's responsible in many ways for bringing Lumina Sales to India by prompting me, and has also put sales into action a lot. So Rajiv, this question is for you. I mean, you're somebody who's always a believer of outcome, meeting objectives. Once you've run the Lumina-based opening session, Now that the data is available to the team and the manager, where do they go from there?
I think as Raghu mentioned, Rahul, that when he said the third design worked very well, and one of his failure modes in first one was that it looked great from an entertainment or understanding perspective, but no action was emerging out of it. So I think I am pretty clear and try to push some definite action. And the good part in sales programs is that people get that action orientation much more easily than some leadership programs, where it is more fuzzy sometimes. So in sales program, I'll just pick up the last slide that Raghu was showing about you can do a team profiling. So if the entire team suddenly now looking at team profile realizes that their market research scores are low, and then you get them to reflect that they've stopped doing real research that they did when they were young. I think those are powerful hitting points, and then you push them back to doing the basics again. To me, actually, sales is nothing but doing basics consistently. There's no big rocket science. The 6 steps are same. They've remained same for 40, 50 years. Hopefully, till I'm selling, it'll remain same. So I don't have to worry too much about it. Um, it is consistency, Rahul. I think some of us become complacent, some of us become overconfident, and some of us take customers for granted. Raghu used a phrase कि मेरे को मार्केट के बारे में सब मालूम है, उस दिन से ही मार्केट फिसलना शुरू करता है, जिस दिन से आप सोचते हो मार्केट के बारे में सब मालूम है. I don't know if I answered very precisely your question, but I definitely push for an action point, and it emerges from the data that comes out in that cohort or for that individual.
My own personal experience, Rajiv, like just continuing with, was that the first time I ran a Lumina Sales program, I of course dragged Rajiv with me. And the two things that were very intriguing and interesting over there was one, that Lumina allows us to turn the learning into play. And human beings are children essentially. So I found that I was getting nervous because by come lunchtime and Rajiv still hasn't revealed the report. He's using all the aids to make the play. So I realized that the report itself is actually not the hero of the program, right? On the other hand, because of the design of the report, there is no psychobabble, there is no goobly dook in it, which frustrates people. Especially, I find the energy of the salespeople is very bottom line, even in the training session. So what I found was the report itself was the diagnosis, the analysis, and the development. It was all in that one report. So that was my learning. It is very true that the energy that you take as a coach or a trainer to a sales program has to be very different. It has to be very clear on like what the outcomes are going to be like. It has to be very engaging. It has to be very autonomy driven. So that was my experience on it. It's great to hear from both of you how you've deployed the personality data. And the last thing is there a typical resistance that comes up? Do you find, and this is question to both of you, that when you introduce psychometrics, is there a typical resistance that comes up?
For Lumina Sales at a mass level, it surely is the price factor per report, Rahul. So
Okay, all right.
the sales teams are large in number, and a lot of people just multiply, per report. They don't think they'll do our one cohort. They think we have 400 people, 1,000 people, 2,000 people, and suddenly that number looks high and daunting. So I think, as Raghu was mentioning, and I know Raghu, we've spoken on some of these areas, in high-end B2B sales, it's much more easier because the per sales person turnover or revenue generated is much greater. While in
Yeah.
retail sales, Raghu, one of the reasons of facing resistance is that per salesperson revenue is relatively smaller, so people don't want to spend so much. But in B2B sales, in key account sales, or at least starting from sales managers first and getting them to realize their selling style and how it impacts the entire team growth or limitation, I think that's where, but price has been one of the common resistance that I believe has stopped me from using more volumes of this compared to some other personality reports which we sell generally other than sales functions.
Fantastic. And Raghu, for you, I mean, both.
So
Lumina
it
Sales
started
like-
with price. Yeah,
Yeah.
it started with price, but then what we figured out is you need to pitch to the right audience. So if I'm going to pitch it to executives, right now, no. Managers is a better place to pitch because typically managers have more time than executives, right? Executives are just executing. Uh, and such tools find more traction when they go top down. So that's one. The second thing that I realized on the way is how well are we able to link the use of Lumina Sales to the outcome the client desires. So,
Hmm.
for example, if it is something as simple, if the brief is as simple as my team is not great at objection handling, right? Teach them objection handling and closure, may not be an appropriate place to actually just place Lumina Sales. Instead, if it says, okay, you know what? I want my sales team to be better at its entire, go to the next level of building strong, powerful relationship with clients, okay, or mining an existing client. So in our mind, we need to think that the end result, does it actually cover all the 6 stages, or is it just 1 or 2 stages the client is asking for? If it covers all the 6 stages, then the Lumina Sales places goes in very well.
I think the other, sorry,
Uh,
just jumping in, I don't know the time,
Yeah.
1 minute maybe. I think the other area, in addition to what Raghu you have said, and I'm also referring to some projects that Preeti and I did using these tools, is if the boss tells you a problem which they are struggling with around their sales team, and through the Lumina sales report, you're able to bring that up in a very data-oriented manner. I think that's the killer pitch as a tool for us. The boss feels so glad, यार मैं इतने सालों से बोलता हूँ मानते नहीं मेरी बात. अब देखो मतलब,
100%.
and then it's very difficult for people to respond. It's their data. You've taken them through exercises. They are primed to accept it more easily. And that has been
Yeah.
the best killer, where the boss in their mind identify the problem. The team currently is dilly-dallying around it. And then you use Lumina Sales to substantiate his case or her case.
Yeah. In fact, one of my stakeholders told in the session, ki, yeah, guys, when you go to a doctor and get the medical report and your triglycerides are high, you don't go to the doctor and say, kya bakwas report hai, jhoot bol rahe ho. Same is the case with Lumina Sales. Take it in that spirit. And because the tool has got 92% validity, right, that's proven. So it has a strong standing.
Yeah. So I think for me, the resistance has been the pricing. The other resistance is, like you said, the application. But I think for me, where the turnaround comes oftentimes, and I think it may be partly linked to what Rajiv said about client finding his answer.
Hmm.
Most of the time, when you're under stress and you move into overextension behaviors because you're demonstrating coping mechanisms. Now, as a human being, when you're in that state, your head is flooded with those hormones, so you can't tell what you're doing. You have a rationale. Like, you have a rationale for even shouting. You have a rationale for not going to a client meeting. You have a rationale for even leaving a meeting midway in your head. The rationale may be flawed, but that's where the feedback then doesn't go through. Now, the interesting part I find is the 24 qualities, which are the sales qualities, right? We can actually see what happens to them under pressure. So when that language changes, how an instinctive close turns into a forced close, for example, that you talked about. Now, like what Rajiv said, that the test taker can't get away. If you're willing to claim all the good feedback, then you have to own up to some of those gaps, right?
Yeah.
But because it's data produced by you and because the language is non-threatening, none of us enjoy feedback, especially one that is corrective. So I think the report through its language takes care a little bit of that. So the answer I think that's emerging is that, yeah, like Rajiv specified, that the per head affordability on a B2B is higher. This is probably more targeted for managers and senior teams. Definitely. It's not like a front field report, but it is probably at that area where the decision making footprint is so big that you need a deep report which can give you not only effective but also overextensions. So I think in Lumina so far we've been able to find that fit at teams, at senior teams, and at senior executives for the deployment. I'm going to pause over here and just check with Sonam. We are about 5 minutes over. In the event that there is already a question over here, and Sonam, what is your plan to stay in touch with people? Because I'm sure people will have follow-on questions. Will you be reaching out, etc.? So would you just take us through that?
Yes. First of all, I would like to thank Raghu for such a real account of Lumina Sales, and also Rajiv sir. So such you helped us keep the conversation very grounded. So thank you for that. And there were many revealing moments for me as well. That of course, to sum up, that sales is not a moment, but it's a journey, and everything is related to self-reflection, which is an important component, usually missed out, not connected to sales performance. So I think in the market, this awareness needs to be, grown, that self-reflection is also related to performance. So thank you, both of you. And I would like to invite any questions. We haven't got any questions till now. We had a couple of them which were already answered by Rajiv sir and Rahul. So if there are any more questions, I would love for the audience to put them in the chat box, or you can also come join us on the stage, and then we'll wrap up. My email ID is already there in the chat box. So if you want more information on Lumina Sales or our upcoming workshops, you are more than welcome to shoot a mail to me, and I will be sending you all the details. And would like to open up the stage for any questions now, please. Anything that resonated with you, any comments, any questions?
And for those of you who might be considering actually putting Lumina Sales into part of their practice, it's also a great opportunity for you to learn by talking to two experts, so right over here, who've been actually taking the report to clients. And Sonam can also facilitate a conversation with Rajiv and Raghu in case you want to learn more. There is one thing to hear it on a webinar, but then actually to have a conversation. So if it's something that's part of your practice that you want to get qualified on, we'll be happy to facilitate that conversation.
Yeah, and Sriram as well, Rahul. Sriram, I see Sriram on the call. He
Yes,
is
Sriram is
also
there.
deployed, yes. So you can reach out to
Sriram,
Sriram as well.
Hi, Shira.
and I mean, what we
Like
can
to
say, I think, as
live.
all members of this community in Lumina, is that we are always there. We collaborate with each other very, very closely. I think most of us arrived very early at the idea that it's just faster to build it if you build it together. So that's something I wanted to put out there.
Absolutely.
Sonam, I'm mindful of people's time. It's getting
Yes.
closer to 7:45. So if there's no other question, I'm sure we'll reach out to people and stay in touch with them. Raghu, thank you so
Definitely.
much. This was fantastic.
Welcome. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Ravi.
My pleasure.
Lovely to hear from you. And Rajiv, it's always a pleasure to put you on the hot seat.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Raghu.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you
thanks,
for
Rajiv.
joining
Thanks,
us.
everyone. Thanks,
Thank you.
Sonam.
Have a great
Sonam,
evening.
great job, Sonam. Thank you so much. Thank you for putting it together.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Bye.